Today's review will be Bernard Malamud's The Fixer. So I first came across this book from another writer, a famous essayist named Joseph Epstein, who's still living and still writing. He published a book within the past few years called Essays in Biography. In that book, he kind of reviews a notable biography about a range of different people, one of the people being Bernard Malamud. Joseph Epstein talks about a lot of attributes of Malamud's work that people tend not to like. It's not that people don't think there's value in Bernard Malamud's output at all. It's just that they found his work quite pessimistic and at times difficult to read because of its characters who tended to be poor or tended to be somewhat ostracized from society. The Fixer is a story very much in that vein, though. It won the Pulitzer Prize. It won the National Book Award. There was talk of Bernard Malamud winning the Nobel Prize for this work. And in many ways, this is very much a Nobel Prize-worthy piece of literature. I personally finished the book in 2 days because it just kind of knocked me off of my feet. It's told in kind of this Russian style of storytelling that's just so gripping. There's like questions of morality at stake, and modern society is thrown into shambles, and the government is out of control. That's what all of this is wrapped up in. So the main character's name is Yakov Bach. He is a handyman in Soviet Russia. He's a poor Jew whose wife leaves him and who's stuck taking care of his father-in-law, who is quite a big annoyance. Yakov is going home one night after work and wondering what he's going to do with his life when he spots an older man collapse in the street. This man is drunk. He falls headfirst into the snow and the ice, and Yakov decides to help the man to his house, even though he notices the man has a button on his lapel that signifies he is a member of this large anti-Semitic organization. Yakov ignores it and continues to help the man, although he does not ever mention that he's Jewish, even when the man regains consciousness. And in order to pay Yakov back, the man hires him to kind of fix up a room of his house. He hires him to do some painting and some flooring and stuff like that. And when Yakov does a great job with all of this, the man offers him a job at a small brick-making factory. And I forget his actual title, but he keeps track, essentially, of how many bricks are coming and going from this factory. He does the accounting for the establishment. But he still never tells anybody that he's Jewish, mostly because the people around him, the people who are working around him, he knows are anti-Semitic and would tell the boss, who then could get Yakov into a lot of trouble. With that said, the people around Yakov are quite distrustful of him, and they act like they suspect something already. So with that setting in mind, this is the opening page of the book. I think it definitely just throws you into the action and throws you into what the whole book is going to be about, what the conflict of the book is about. From the small crossed window of his room above the stable in the brickyard, Yakov Bach saw people in their long overcoats running somewhere early that morning, everybody in the same direction. Vey is mir, he thought uneasily. Something bad has happened. The Russians, coming from streets around the cemetery, were hurrying, singly or in groups, in the spring snow in the direction of the caves in the ravine, some running in the middle of the slushy cobblestone streets. Yakov hastily hid the small tin can in which he saved silver rubles, then rushed down to the yard to find out what the excitement was about. He asked Proshko, the foreman, loitering near the smoky brick kilns, but Proshko spat and said nothing. Outside the yard, a black-shawled, bony-faced peasant woman, thickly dressed, told him the dead body of a child had been found nearby. "Where?" Yakov asked. "How old a child?" But she said she didn't know and hurried away. The next day, the Kiev-Valadian reported that in a damp cave in a ravine not more than a verst and a half from the brickworks, the body of a murdered Russian boy, Zina Golov, 12 years old, had been found by two older boys, both 15, Zazimir and Ivan. Zina, dead more than a week, was covered with stab wounds. His body bled white. After the funeral in the cemetery close by the brick factory, Richter, one of the drivers, brought in a handful of leaflets accusing the Jews of murder. They had been printed, Yakov saw when he examined one, by the Black Hundreds organization. Their emblem, the imperial double-headed eagle, was imprinted on the cover, and under it, "Save Russia from the Jews." So considering the society at hand, the amount of paranoia and suspicion that everyone had, Yakov is taken in for questioning, and eventually he confesses that he is a Jew. He gets blamed for the murder of the boy. What transpires is honestly just absolute insanity. People start coming out of the woodwork that he doesn't even know, saying that they saw Yakov at this place and that place, which ties him to the murder. The mother of the deceased boy makes up that her son told her that Yakov had threatened him. The man that employed Yakov all along says that he was a horrible person and isn't surprised about the betrayal. And Yakov is basically put into prison for years, I think. Constantly tortured. He's never indicted with anything. He's just kind of toyed with psychologically. And it's quite sadistic writing, actually. I think that the level of torture is taken to extremes, but considering that this is based on a true story, I wonder if it's just kind of hyper-realistic writing. For example, one of these extremes of descriptions of torture, there's a part where the prison gives him a pair of shoes to wear that's in compliance with their, not dress code, but just what they expect all of the prisoners to wear all the time. So not only do they give him wooden shoes with nails sticking out of them, but they ignore him until his feet start bleeding with gangrene and pus and get infected. And then they make him crawl on his hands and knees to the infirmary, where they do surgery on him without any anesthetic or numbing cream. So there's always more to the suffering than just the single disgusting fact that, in this case, they gave him shoes with nails sticking out of them. But this isn't the only type of torture. There's also a very psychological side to torture, many instances of which I really just wanted to throw the book across the room and kill myself. There were moments where there were glimmers of hope, and not only did those parts get just snuffed out entirely, but kind of mutilated in front of you. The prison guards try to humiliate him. They try to make him renounce his faith, his Jewish identity. They torture him with the intent of keeping him alive so that he has to endure it. They're basically waiting for him to confess to a crime that he did not commit. Finally, towards the end of the book, Yakov receives a notice that he's being put up for trial. He has, in fact, received a date, and the close of the book is his journey to the courthouse. I'm not going to talk about the ending very much because it's such a payoff. I will say, though, that the ending is quite ambiguous. Even so, it makes everything worthwhile. It makes you want to weep for this character and for this society that's just so far from justice and truth and humanity. The ending is kind of a reminder of hope. for humanity and strength through collectivism. It makes the case that humans do have a natural yearning for peace and fairness. And it shows that whatever happens to this character, to Yakov, there has in a sense been a victory for humanity that's far greater than the trial or the verdict that he will receive. But based on some of the stuff that I've been talking about, I have probably made the contents of the novel seem pretty disturbing and graphic, and it's true, they kind of are, but if anything, I want to express that this is an extremely accessible novel. It's extremely moving. It's a novel with a huge payoff in the end. And this is part of why Malamud was considered a Russian novelist who happened to be an American Jew. The story is so gripping, it's unpredictable, it's tightly constructed. I really just don't think there's a word in the text that isn't necessary. In general, the novel is also just so fast-paced. Like I said, I finished it in 2 days, and it's about 300 pages. And I also want to say that I had never heard of Bernard Malamud before reading Joseph Epstein's essay. And once I read The Fixer, I really just wanted to read everything that he had written. I think that he's a voice that will hopefully not be forgotten ever, and a voice that really needs to be heard more nowadays. So with that, I really recommend this book. Out of all of the books that I've reviewed so far on this channel, I would recommend this one the most. So give it a try.